Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Climbing Sycamores podcast, where we look at today's topics to get a better view of Christianity. I'm Annie Beege, and I'm joined by my friends Ben Sadler and Matt Harbach. Hey. Ooh, it's cold out today.
It is cold.
Whew.
Wind
Brutal.
chill was 3 below.
Gross.
Went out with my dog this morning, went on our walk, and it was cold. Mm-hmm. I wanted to begin by asking, what do you want for Christmas? And because, Matt, you had some interesting things especially.
Yes.
What do you want?
Well, as a new homeowner, I've started to kind of put together a list of things I need.
Yeah.
And I need a microwave cover and a shop vac.
And what do you mean by a microwave? The little
plastic dome thing that goes over your plate so that you don't get stuff splattering all over, which is not a necessity.
But now that you're owning, you don't want a microwave that's filled with food splattered everywhere.
Correct.
Maybe if you're renting, but now as an owner.
I don't care about that.
Yeah.
I'm not cleaning up my rental, but
yeah.
Yeah. I need more tissues eventually. Yeah, that's
Toilet paper or Kleenex?
Oh, blowing your nose.
tissue.
Yeah, tissues. Okay. Yeah.
That's on your list?
Yeah.
Okay.
And shelves. So if anyone out there, I'm registered at Target. If anyone out there wants to buy me some stuff, let me know.
Anything?
I don't know.
What do you do when someone gets you a gift and you do not like it at all? How do you respond? Do you keep it? Do you get rid of it right away? Do you?
I don't know that I've ever...
Harder question is, what do you do in the moment?
Yeah, that's what I'm...
In the moment?
You gotta recover from that.
I don't know if I've ever gotten a gift that I just didn't like.
Okay.
That I was just so egregiously ew.
I just remember childhood, my grandma she didn't get it after a while, and she just got these sweatshirts I thought were just so ugly. And then you thought maybe she talked with mom and maybe you would have gotten a Sega Genesis game or something. No, we get this sweatshirt that I'm never going to wear in my life. And I think I biffed that one.
I thought about this. People buy, people don't understand that there's another layer to what other people like.
Yeah.
If you knew me, for example, and you knew that I liked Simon and Garfunkel music, you'd be like, oh, I'll get Matt tickets to a Simon and Garfunkel concert because I know that's what he likes.
Right.
Except that I don't even like concerts.
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
So you think you know.
You go through the first layer and you say, what would I want? Okay, what's their version of that? But you don't realize that they're a whole different person. They don't like the same things you do.
Plus, I think I rarely nowadays get a gift that I haven't somehow indicated that I wanted.
Get me this.
Right. It's kind of it happens on Mother's Day.
Yeah.
Dave will be like, okay, what do you want for Mother's Day? And then I'll send him an Amazon link and then he'll buy it. And then it'll I'll see when it's arriving. Great. So there's no surprise. There's no mystery. Yeah. Same with the kids, for Christmas, I've been asking them questions for a month or so. What do you think about this? Or would you like one of these? Or blah, blah, blah. Or what do you need? Or what do you want? What are you into? Just to kind of get ideas. And so I'm rarely surprised.
Yeah. Is that good or bad?
I don't know. It's kind of bad. Dave, listening.
But would you rather get something you don't want?
Well, that's the thing. And I guess because if it's coming from our money, then it's I'd rather just buy it myself.
Yeah.
Knowing that I want it.
Right.
If it's somebody else buying me a gift and I'm not overly crazy about it.
Yeah.
Well, I'm kind of sentimental. I feel like if somebody gets me something, then I'm probably just going to keep it just because it's from that person.
Yeah, and you're thankful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We actually started having a discussion about this because for years my family has done Secret Santa.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it was always okay, there's a $20 limit, but then, buy something that you think they want. And then you have to guess who it's from and you don't even know what it is. And so it's a double surprise. But over the years, now it's all right, we're going to do this online. Everyone share
Do you do Elfster?
what you want. We do.
Yeah, so do we. Have you done Elfster?
No.
And at first it was everyone would be oh, I'm looking for this. But now it's just everyone just posts an Amazon link.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then you go to open your gift. And you're like, well, I don't really care who it's from. I already know what it is. I know exactly what it is because I listed exactly one item.
Well,
and this is the size of that box.
The idea is with Elfsters, you can coordinate a Secret Santa through Elfster where it will digitally draw for you.
Yeah.
And you get to make your own like wish list.
Yeah.
And you can do it for birthdays as well so that people can peek at your wish list. Yeah. And you don't unless you put one item, Matthew. But if you put multiple items, then you are surprised by maybe which of the items you're going to get.
Yeah.
Okay. A little bit of surprise.
A little bit of surprise. I like that. That's okay.
I mean, it's still kind of fun not knowing who got you, but that like part of the thing is if you don't know what you're getting, then it's kind of like depending on who drew your name, that person has a different relationship with you or something and might buy you something different. But if you already know what you're getting, it really doesn't matter who gave it to you because they just picked the one thing off the list. So my
wife they have a kind of a fun thing that they do with her life group. All the ladies buy their favorite things and they do and then you get I think there's 6 women in the group. So you get 6 of your favorite things and they have to be, under $5. Yeah, something like that. But your favorite lotion, favorite book, favorite whatever. And then you give one of those to everybody in the group.
So you share your favorite
things. Oh. Yeah, and so
I like that.
People well, I never would have thought of that, but now I like it because you like it. We do like my big family gathering, we do kind of a Yankee swap thing, but you buy same kind of thing, buy a gift that you would like. There's men gifts and women's gifts, and then you have a men's gift exchange and a women's gift exchange. And so you usually get something, a tool or something, I don't know, golf balls. It's good. It's good. A tie. There's usually a lot of alcohol too. Very good. Well, what I wanted to talk about today, I've been talking about being in this course on Christian mental health counseling, and now I turned off my phone because you were saying don't be on your phone.
Yeah.
Be present, Benjamin.
But I had this definition of family systems, but I can say it. I wanted to talk a little bit about this idea of family systems theory. It's the holiday season, so you're going to be hanging around family. And family systems theory is this idea that none of us are an island, that we are part of a unit, a family system, and we interplay off each other, and the family the whole system wants to get back to equilibrium. And so if there's some kind of, you can think of it kind of like a triangle, like if one part of the triangle is kind of leaning one direction, the other side has to adjust. So if somebody in the family is maybe an alcoholic, well then the rest of the family has to kind of insulate that somehow to kind of bring equilibrium back to the family. Or if there's other kind of dysfunction, there's other ways that the rest of the family kinds of makes up for that or tries to, make it back to equilibrium. Then there's other dynamics like boundary setting in a family system. What's a proper boundary? There's just the reality that what your great-grandparents did has a ripple effect. And what I found so fascinating about this is a relatively new theory, but this is so ancient. The Bible says that the sins of the father pass down to the 3rd and 4th generation, and we see that especially in the book of Genesis. So in the book of Genesis, the first Hebrew, Abraham deceives somebody, or deceives the Pharaoh of Egypt, saying that his wife is his sister. Isaac deceives Abimelech, saying that his wife is his sister. Jacob deceives his brother and father, saying that he is his brother. And then Jacob's son deceive him, saying that Joseph has died when they sold him into slavery. Abraham has a favorite son and shows favoritism, Isaac over Ishmael. Causes all sorts of problems. Isaac does the same thing. Has a favorite son, Esau over Jacob. Jacob does the same thing, chooses Joseph over the rest of the sons, and even Joseph has a favorite son. And so this reality, you see it in the Bible, you see it in our lives, that although we don't want to repeat the sins of our fathers, how often we do. Also just gathering with our family, why do you feel uneasy around some family members? Why can it be so straining? And then there's this idea in psychology called differentiation. I said it. That this idea that you want to not necessarily follow all of the dysfunction in your family, but it doesn't necessarily mean you have to leave your family, but you can differentiate. You can be a little different. You can find out who your unique self is, God-pleasing self, and yet still bring health and healing to the family instead of maybe abandon it or just participate in the dysfunction. So those are all the different ideas that are rolling around in my head, and I think they could be helpful to see them biblically, see them psychologically, and then think about how that plays out in our dynamics at home. And I've talked about this with a couple different groups of people, and I've had some people say, "Well, I didn't have a father because he wasn't around, or one person, you passed away when I was younger, so I don't have any of these family dynamic systems." Well, the fact that you don't have a father that's part of the family's trying to make up for that or kind of fill that gap, and so everybody, even if one person said the most vanilla family, that's part of it. Well, why was it so vanilla? What were you trying to combat against? What were some of the reasons why it was such maybe kind of mild or tame or, don't rock the boat kind of thing? Or why was it so chaotic? So I think it's good to step back and think about, what do you guys think?
What do you mean by equilibrium? Like trying to restore equilibrium? I understand, like with the case of like, alcoholism, like somebody who is in the family who has alcoholic, then the other family maybe just like completely shunning it or whatever to try to restore type of, or whatever. What do you mean equilibrium?
Yeah. I think all systems want to get back to equilibrium. Your body, if you're really cold, it tries to heat itself up and to get back to baseline.
What is baseline in a family?
Yeah, I think baseline would be function. They're trying to function.
Function without like totally upsetting everything, right?
Yeah, upsetting everything, tearing apart. It could look different for different equilibrium. So you also build a tolerance where you get a baseline. And if the baseline is chaos, and that's equilibrium, you're used to chaos, you see families that will cause chaos.
For chaos.
Yeah, like when things are too plain, they're so used to managing chaos that maybe they make a big purchase that they didn't need to, and that brings chaos to the family. Now we got to work extra jobs because that's their baseline. So,
So even equilibrium itself is kind of a moving...
It can be. Okay. Yeah, I think that's something to step back and think like, what is equilibrium for? What does it look like how are we function as a family? Do we function more at a chaos kind of where we have more spontaneity, which can be fine if it goes too far, or are we too rigid, where there's so many rules and there's so much playing it safe and that no one can butt against that, where we live in fear of breaking any whatever family rule or tradition. So those are the different extremes. So I think it's good to think about where your family is. How does your family function? What level of equilibrium are we trying to maintain? I think what can happen, we just get so used to it. In the case of an alcoholic, sometimes an alcoholic will start getting better, and the family's so used to maybe taking care of this person and being used as like, they're not used to not being the helper. And so they'll almost sabotage that. And they don't even think they're doing that. And I guess the big part of this is the most important lesson is awareness. To not blame people, get mad at people. They're passing on traditions that, not to get mad at your parents or your family or whatever, but to be aware of it.
And accountable, right?
Yeah, and accountable. That's true. But to say we get to choose, and probably the worst thing for us to do is to just go in and autopilot. This is how we've always done it. This is what I'm going to participate in. Sometimes it's okay to step back and think, well, is that healthy? Is that really where I want to be? Talking about equilibrium, I think when somebody starts using substances, like now they have a new equilibrium. They have a tolerance level where now they have to do that drug just to remain have that equilibrium, have that tolerance. And I think the same thing can happen in family systems where this is what we tolerate. This is our tolerance level. And if we don't get back there, we'll find a way to get back there. And it does take it, again, same with somebody getting sober. It takes pain usually, a process of withdrawals, all that. And that's going to happen in a family system too, that if there's a lot of dysfunction, it's going to take time and sometimes managing some kind of stress or pain to set a new baseline. And what happened in Genesis is Joseph got sold into slavery by his brothers because they were jealous of him being daddy's favorite. Falsely accused of sexual harassment, left in prison, then becomes second in command in Egypt. And then during a time of famine, the brothers go to Egypt looking for food, and there's Joseph, who has all the power in the world to destroy his brothers and get revenge and keep this dysfunction and deception and all that rolling, and he forgives. And he sees that God has been with them the whole time. And I think that's really where we can find healing, especially during the Christmas season, the holiday season. If you do have a family that's filled with so much anger or pain, to find a way to forgive. Doesn't mean you're not holding people accountable, but you don't have to keep passing this on for generations. So breaking the
cycle. And we hear about that with like abuse, right?
Yes.
Whether it's sexual abuse or physical or verbal, emotional abuse, like from parents to children, then they're more likely to reoffend as children, when they become adults.
Right, exactly.
Or in situations of like maybe a home without, with a father without a father present, sometimes that gets passed down too. Yeah. So breaking the cycle.
Yeah. And I think the power of this is, or the importance of this is, we think, oh, I'm a Christian, and so I'm motivated by Christ. Well, hopefully in some levels, but you're also a child of your parents, and you're going to repeat a lot of things that you learned in that culture, in that family, that you picked up. And you have to be aware of that, because you probably do that more than you think.
Do you say stuff that your parents ever said?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, maybe as a parent, I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Maybe not you, Matt, not yet, but as a
you
parent.
even walk like your dad kind of hunched over.
Getting
and
there,
yeah.
My mom would always say, I've lived X number of your lifetimes. I know what I'm talking about. And I said it like, I only said it once, like years ago, and I've never said it again. I've lived 3 of your lifetimes, and I know better. Okay.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know. What do you think the application is to this, Matt, or what do you think about this?
I'm thinking about a couple people I know that I feel like are maybe, like you'd say, the lightning rod or the peacemaker in the family.
Okay.
I can think of like 2 families. One is like I was never with them when there was like a fight or a blow up or anything. But I like the father in the family, like very like sharp and kind of demanding, and he worked hard. It's not that he wasn't contributing to the family, but like you could tell that he kind of was used to getting his way, and the son is the same way, and so like the mom is kind of never like constantly doing everything for everyone and like going out of her way to always be helpful and to like fuss over everything and appease a little bit. Yeah. And then the daughter in the family, I felt like the daughter in the family kind of like the peacemaker, where she could stand up for herself a little bit, but she also is taking after her mom, and like she kind of brought everyone together, and it was like when she was there was not as much tension,
Yeah.
And I have another friend like that where, these people, this family member doesn't like this one, and this one doesn't like this one, and these 2 gossip about that one, and this friend then when they're there, it's like they kind of have a foot in the door with everyone, and they can bring it all together and like change the subject, and I think that takes that's like the perceptive, more intuitive person, but also then who's pretty conflict averse, who's not there to stir the pot, is just there to keep peace.
Yeah.
And so I think, if you're that person, like, I think you have to know when you have to say something, because I think the result that I've seen is you're there to keep the peace and everyone kind of likes you, but then you kind of get your time, your boundaries and your time is disrespected because everyone expects they can talk to you about this or that, and or they think like, oh, you really have to be at this family function. It's going to be a big problem if you're not there, and you're kind of emotionally responsible now because otherwise the family will get into a fight.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And so we don't necessarily pick these roles, but because of these different dynamics, you have to fill these roles to kind of, all right, if it's more of a volatile father and a volatile son, all right, who's going to offset that and bring peace? And then something I've learned a lot too is so much of it is done in triangles where direct like even I think this podcast makes it work so well. I think if it was just two of us, it'd be a lot more boring. But the fact that like we can pull someone else in who has a different perspective, and that happens a lot, but that happens in families. And you think about like even the story again in Genesis where you have Isaac, who's got a favorite son, Esau. And now Jacob wants this blessing. Well, he can't go directly to his father for this blessing. He pulls in his mom, or his mom wants him to get the blessing, so she gets pulled in. There's a triangle there. Yeah. And triangles are more stable, like even in physical structures. Like if you have a building built out of triangles, it's a lot more sturdy than just two beams. But you have to ask, like, are we pulling this person in because I just want someone on my side so I can beat up on that other person? Or are they mitigating that? Yeah. And when it goes too far, like you were kind of alluding to, was that if somebody's just getting dumped on all the time, they're filling this role as the peacemaker, but they just kind of become the dumpster where you throw all your garbage that you don't want on that person. And I think that's what I mean. Like you have to pay attention to your spirit, your heart, your faith, and ask some questions like, am I filling a role that's perpetuating more unhealth in this family? Mm-hmm. And do I maybe need to take a little bit different a role? And am I okay with some of the pushback because I'm going to disrupt the system then? But we shouldn't keep going in this direction. Mm-hmm. We don't. Father doesn't need to be that volatile. He can learn to calm down, and then I don't need to take on so much either. Yeah. You know, those kind of things.
And I'm thinking that the family I mentioned with a more volatile father and a more appeasing mother, like it seemed like there was a triangle there, but it was like two legs of the triangle were so far one way that the mother in this situation was just stretched to the absolute limit.
Right.
And I think when it comes to like families, I am very conflict averse, you know? And so like I'm with this family and there's nothing being said that's wrong, but I can just, it's tenuous. Yeah. You know, I can just feel it.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh man, like there's some deep, deep problems here. And I can't say anything, of course, but it's like, I want to be out of the room now.
Yeah. And so that's why I think this is so important. And birth order is another thing that pops up in the Bible too. Even when Jesus tells the story of the lost son, or the two sons, the older brother who's the rule keeper and the prodigal son who runs away. And that happens a lot of times in families where the oldest son, that's me, tries to keep all the rules, do all the right things. And then, although my brother was not rebellious, you know, like those dynamics can happen as well. I think it's just awareness and to be just more conscious as to what role you might be filling in your family. And do you have to fill that role? Is that role leading to more health, or is it causing more dysfunction? And is it going to hurt people generations down the line?
Yeah. Well, I can think of an example in our own family. I'm probably more the disciplinarian and have been, you know, with the kids. But I've always, and Dave will be like, "Whoa, Annie, like that's too much," or like, you know, the punishment doesn't fit the crime.
Sure.
And my response to Dave is sometimes you're too lenient and you're not doing enough, and therefore I'm overdoing
You're making up for it,
right? Because like we need to find like a middle ground here. Like, yes, I might be, you know, taking away too much stuff or whatever, penalizing too much for whatever was done, but that's because I'm trying. And I've said that to him, like I'm trying to compensate for your leniency,
right?
So I think that's another example of just like trying to,
and then the reality, like, that you both come from different systems also. And so then you try to put that together and start a new system. It just, what I find so helpful, I think it creates more compassion for people. Because when you see somebody who maybe is struggling with maybe a vice or struggling with something or finances or whatever, it's like they're not just making bad decisions independently. Part of this is a system. Now they can still have the power. We do have the power to make decisions. We do have the power to have volition and and not be a part of those things and be aware of it. But if you would I think that's what can be so detrimental sometimes. You take someone out of an unhealthy system, you put them at a treatment center, and they do really great in the treatment center, but then they leave and they go back into an unhealthy system, and it's all around them again. And so we just have to be aware of what we put ourselves in. And that doesn't mean you have to necessarily move out or run away or get away. Sometimes you have to, but other times you just got to say, I'm going to differentiate. I'm not going to keep playing this role. I'm going to play a little bit different role. And so I think this also forms our personalities. It forms a lot of who we are. And it's all part of the biblical text also. So the other side of this, it says, the sins get passed on to the third and fourth generation, but God blesses thousands of generations of those who love me and keep my commandments. And so if you can make some changes and pass on God's word and God's love and peace, you're going to bless thousands of generations. So I think that can be really powerful motivation to not just go autopilot. Yeah. So it's interesting. Yeah, I think I've been thinking about that, like with our kids. All right, is it a healthy system? What are things that we're doing that our parents did that I didn't like, or whatever, from generations? What do we do to be different? And we're not going to be perfect. We need Christ no matter what. So yeah.
And every family is so very different. I've often, just one observation I've had is just, I've said to many people, every family figures out the way that they're going to do things when it comes to, is there going to be a parent that stays home when the kids are young? And a lot of times there is, but are both parents going to work?
Right.
And a lot of times that has, so every family just has a way of working their own things out, no matter how many kids you have or whatever. It's just interesting for me to see our family and then our friends' families and the way that they make it work with childcare, with marital roles and who's doing what, and it's just interesting to see how every family just operates differently, right, but they make it work.
And maybe the dangers then of comparison, they have all that figured out. Well, you don't know that, and right. Maybe there's one area that they have figured out, but then there's other areas that they have to compensate for. And so, the reality too is everybody's doing their best they can to stay at equilibrium. So they're just be careful about comparisons. Yeah. So that's a healthy way to look at it. You find it interesting that they do things that way. Not I have to follow everything.
No, because people are different. Families are different.
Right.
You got to kind of just do what you can.
I know throughout the years that I didn't realize this because I think we have a basically healthy, functioning family and, aunts and uncles and all that. But there are many people, this causes an enormous amount of stress when you're going to a family gathering and there's somebody who's ultra political that wants to talk about that the whole time, or somebody who's whatever, just comes in with all their own baggage, and it really can. And I saw, I think this was a Babylon Bee or a satirical magazine said uncle figures out that their family doesn't have a crazy uncle, and he figures out I'm the crazy uncle. I'm the weird uncle. So well, hopefully this is helpful to see this part of the biblical account. You can make changes. You can make them today. You don't have to say, well, this is just who I am. I don't remember where I read this, but it was there was a story of twins, and they came from an abusive alcoholic family. And then they interviewed these twins, 20, 30 years in, and one of them was sober and never touched a drink of alcohol, and they had same genetic makeup and everything. I said, how did you get so clean? He said, well, I saw my dad and everything he did, and I was not going to be that kind of person. And then they interviewed the other person and said, well, what happened to you? What? He said, well, I'm just part of this family, and so this is I'm just like my dad. I'm following in his footsteps. There's nothing I could do about it. And so I think that can happen, is that either you make that decision and you get the help you need in all these different areas, whatever it is, be a part of a good, healthy, hopefully healthy church, healthy Christian system, and then be able to evaluate what parts am I getting from my faith and what parts am I getting maybe from a dysfunctional family. Yeah.
So step one is probably figure out what role you're playing, like what leg in the triangle you are.
Yeah.
When there's problems.
Yeah, I think it comes up especially when there's conflict. Are you causing it? Are you trying to appease it? Are you trying to pacify it? Right. And maybe also evaluate, like, what is our baseline? Like, are we too okay with chaos, or are we so rigid that nobody can just take a break sometimes, that everything is so intense, and just kind of evaluate where you are on that spectrum and be willing to make changes. And then once you do, recognize that's going to ripple. Healthy changes will also cause stress in the family because you're being different than you were before, and that affects them. I've seen a lot of people when they make some healthy changes, they get ostracized from their family because they either get envious or they can't take it, or they or it's like a mirror. Then they have to change, and that's really hard. Yeah. So I think that those are the steps. Anything else?
Easy fix. Just go change.
Check back
well, I think the opposite's true. Like, you realize how hard it is to change because it's way more than just me making a decision. It's a part of a whole web of people.
I think what's fascinating is like seeing my siblings, and like they've got their own friends and things, and I'm in my group of friends, and you act like one person, and then you get back together after years, and it's like, nope, you're still the youngest, you're still the oldest, you know, you're still the goofy one, you're still the nerd, whatever, like.
Are you the nerd?
I'm the yeah.
Don't say I'm the super cool guy.
I'm not the nerd, but yeah, it's interesting how you can't shake that even after years of being 20 years old. You're grown up now, but when you get back together, you're still the same
part of that system.
Pieces.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks, guys. Good information.
Thank you. If you'd like to get a hold of us here at the Climbing Sycamores podcast, feel free to email bsadler@victoryofthelamb.com. bsadler@victoryofthelamb.com. If you like today's intro music, it's been brought to you by Andrew Lynch's song, My Name. Hello.